Don't look that way, I guess. Okay, so. Hello, people on the internet interested in architectural photography. That's our target market. So, we've been using this massive camera. Oops, don't have the thing on. But we've been using the X100 now for 2 years. We've been loving it. The images and everything else you get out of this are amazing. Anyone who's shooting like Canon Mark IV, 3D, 5, whatever, and wants to upgrade to a medium format option, this is it, hands down. Awesome camera. My issue with it, Fuji, is the Wi-Fi connecting to the app on the iPad. I use an iPad to shoot live so you can walk into frame, move stuff around. It's my only complaint right now, is that the buggy nature of the Wi-Fi connecting to the iPad, unusable, unprofessional, not effective. If it were just reliable, just as reliable as the Canon. I used to use Canon stuff all the time, and I could connect right from the camera to the iPad. I didn't have to have third-party stuff hanging out and wires being bumped and pulled out and all that. Please, Fuji, such a great camera, but I hate not being able to communicate to the iPad. Enough whining. Great camera. Please fix that and make it reliable. I really appreciate it, but that's not what this video is about. I love the X100. We've been using it a long time. It makes great images. It's what I use professionally. This video is about this little guy. This is an amazing little camera, and it limits you, and it's difficult to use, and it's still amazing. And that sounds really stupid, I know, and counterintuitive, I know, but hear me out. Here's my idea. I've been working as an architectural photographer for probably over 15 years now, and you working as a creative, you can easily get into a system of how you work where your results become predictable, and your creative experience becomes one of falling back on what you know how to do, and that accomplishes good work, your clients are happy, you make money, everything's great. The problem is you stagnate if you're not careful. So this little guy is my process of attempting to not stagnate. And this thing works good in that way because it limits you. Now, to help understand this, I watched a movie a few months ago that I think Ricky Gervais was in. He produced and wrote and all that, I imagine. But the movie was about this guy, like human evolution had not allowed people to lie. We just hadn't discovered that tool of lying yet. And Ricky comes along, and he's the one who all of a sudden figures out, oh, you can just not be brutally honest all the time. And he starts to realize how much more cohesive and easy life is when you're not just brutally honest with people. And all these weird things you kind of realize in watching this manipulated version of reality. And what they did is they pinned this one little part of our reality to not be able to do anything other than speak the truth constantly, no matter the results all the time. And by pinning that one thing, you learned about everything else that spins around that helps you learn about how to use those other things. It's a way of taking a fish out of water so they learn about water. It's really interesting. So by pinning this one part of a camera, saying you've only got this focal length, that's the first part of this camera that has challenged me, that I really appreciate, that I think is the thing that people get pretty excited about for this camera. I love, first of all, the look of the thing. I know it's kind of retro, kitschy, whatever, but it's a beautiful little thing to look at, and I just like having it with me. I'm working on trying to make my own little strap for it because it's fun to actually make stuff. But I'm not all that good at like tying knots and stuff yet. So I'm still working on that, and I'm still working out what kind of paracord or whatever else I'm going to attach to the actual camera, because if you attach these to the side, they scratch it all up. And all the straps that I found online were junk or too big. So anyways, you can get a bunch of different accessories for these things. People love to really kit them out, and I've really only done 3 things here. I got this lens hood. Nice thing about the X100V, the new version, the V, is that it's weather sealed, but it's only weather sealed if you get a good UV filter kind of lens hood that screws on out here. It comes with a little thing that you can screw off and then put one of these on, and then it's officially what they would call weather sealed, which is super and duper. I got the Hogue LUV X54W. I got my prescription checked. I'm getting new glasses, you know. And then I got this grip that goes on the bottom and gives you this side grip on the side so you can actually grip it. And I got this thumb grip for the back because I'm probably never going to put a flash of any sort in there or sync or any of that. And the downside about this lens hood is that the flash on camera gets limited by this lens hood and it creates a black line in your image, but it looks pretty. So, you know, I like this lens hood and I'm not planning on using the flash, so I'm good. But yeah, that's all I've done for accessories. You can get these little things that go on the trigger, what I call the trigger. But they stick up so far that you start waking up the camera far too often and your batteries get run out, or you put it in a bag and it starts triggering the camera. No good. It's totally fine like that. But most everyone seems to get these little things that they can look neat, but meh, not into it. So anyways, this thing, it's very similar like a architectural project in school that I had. I remember one project was just like there was no limitations. There was no budget or anything else that we were trying to fit in. It was just like whatever you want to do for this school. You know, no budget, really no limitations, just be creative. And that was a fun exercise, but there's something natural about limitations that help you pin one part of it and get creative with the rest. And by pinning the 35, it helps you get creative with the rest. And when I first started using this, I produced many crappy images because I was just approaching it as an afterthought. I just carry it around and start snapping anything without really thinking about it. And this thing makes you work harder, and that's why I like it, which again is a little counterintuitive. Using the GFX 100 with all the different lenses we have and everything else, I don't have to work as hard to get a great image because I know exactly what focal length just intuitively now from all this work that I can go to it and just get what I need. And there's a degree of a creative part of my brain that doesn't get engaged because of all that flexibility. By using this, which is less flexible for that sense, it really makes me work harder. It makes me learn about what I'm actually doing, and it makes me think, and people say this, and it makes you kind of start to think in a 35 millimeter format where you just kind of see things in that way. Or at least you start to look at the things that are movable within a composition and actually move around to accommodate that, which is super cool. So it's been really fun to learn how to effectively use this camera and how it can actually work to make some really cool images. And because of its look and its size, you'll actually keep it on you more often and actually creatively work with this more often. So my personality type, and I've met a lot of different people who work differently, but some people will just constantly have a camera on them and just be shooting images and playing around with it. My friend Chet Williams, he does that kind of thing, and he's incredible at it. He's always making these creative, great images, and I look at him and I'm just like, that just seems like you're making so much work for yourself. And I have to have an intent before I go create things and know what the end result is to a degree or why I'm doing it. So with this camera, I've approached it for one, like I know I can just post stuff on Instagram and get feedback as far as, you know, the more likes you get, the more just that image is connecting with people, and that's great. And it's a great immediate feedback way to try and produce something different than what I'm constantly doing in being an architectural photographer. This makes me go walk around in the woods and take weird little perspectives of like details of nature, or like these landscapes, or, you know, city compositions or street stuff, which is super fun and different. So I'm like actually going on walks with my son or both sons, and they'll bring a camera with them and I'll use this. And it's just such a great thing to go out and be present in nature or present in a city and to be observing and actually capturing it without thinking about all this other stuff. I've kind of learned to now enjoy that kind of thing more than I ever have before, which is new for me. So working in that manner has improved what I do professionally, and because of this camera's limitations, it encourages that. And because of its size, compactness, and the beauty of it, you don't mind taking it with you whenever you go somewhere. I've made this, a little bit considerably bigger because of the things I've added on. But for me, they add the security and the grip and everything else that you have to be able to work with it. I'm going to be going across the country this winter in a truck with a sliding camper with my family. I'm going to be taking this with me and posting a lot of stuff. Now, the way in which different people set this camera up to be able to use it is a very important distinction. This is roughly a $1,500 camera, $1,500 camera, and there's a reason for it. And because Fuji makes other bodies like this that have removable lenses. Why did they make one that has this fixed lens? And it's a brave move that from my perspective, as a manufacturer, I wouldn't have thought that would be something that you should do, but they did, and it's wildly successful. And I think it's that because of this unique relationship to the limitations and what that does to your creative process. It's extremely important. Now, the technical interaction with this thing, how you set it up, how you use it, and how it opens up you being able to capture different types of stuff. So how you set this thing up and how you use it is fairly important in my opinion. And this could get really boring, so maybe take a sip of coffee and don't fall asleep. But I'm going to run you through really quick, as much as I can, the way that I've set it up and how I use it and how it's effective. As I said, I've kind of made my own strap here that I'm on like version 4, and I'm having a lot of fun actually making these things at night, tying knots and stuff. It's oddly fun. But when you have this thing with a strap around your neck, the really cool thing is that with this newer version of the X100, the screen on the back flips out, which maybe seems like a gimmicky, fun little whatever. But you can use it then like a view camera where you're overhead, you're shooting that direction, but you're looking down. And this is really important that if you're in a street setting where there's, strangers you're trying to get pictures of in an interesting interaction, you can just have the lanyard around your neck holding it here, and you're looking right down at what the camera's seeing, and you're able to trigger it like with your thumb or something else, or make it look like you're just working on the dials or settings or fiddling with your camera while you're actually capturing what's going on without scaring the wildlife, if you will. And that's a real thing that, if you're out on the street and all of a sudden someone's, doing that to you, it's very off-putting and odd. And I found that this trick of just doing that and holding it down here, really, really nice. So the weather sealing and that, and being much sharper at f2 and this version of the X100 is extremely important. Hello, doggy. Hello. Doggies are our friends. They're good. So that's all. Hey, buddy. Hi. Those are all kind of neat aspects of this specific version of this camera. Now, on this version, they took off the other thing that was back here. It was like a joystick and everything else and selector buttons. I'm very happy with how this works with just that and then these 3 buttons. It's a much more minimal layout, and it feels nice in your hands. You can assign a bunch of different stuff to all these buttons to just figure out how you best want this to work. How I work with this camera is I leave it on automatic for ISO, and I leave it on automatic for shutter speed almost all the time. And the only thing I do is I adjust my settings by setting your auto presets, and you can do auto 1, 2, and 3. I set auto presets and I assign them to a button that just immediately brings them up, and I can select between them. I have auto 1, auto 2, auto 3. Auto 1 I set up for shooting in bright light situations, so middle of the day on the street or outside. Auto 2 is more of a medium range, and then auto 3 is if I'm in a dark kind of setting, like shooting a cityscape at night or something like that. And what those auto settings do is they limit your shutter speed and your ISO to certain ranges that will be most effective in that setting. So in a really bright setting, anytime, any setup here, you want it to go to as close as like 100 ISO as possible, and then limit your shutter speed to not go too slow. So on Auto 1, I think I have my base ISO at 160, my top end ISO at 800, and my shutter speed won't go below 100th of a second. That way I know anything I'm shooting is at least 100th of a second, so it's going to be fairly crisp on a 35 as long as I'm not running around too quickly. If I want to make sure I'm capturing something much faster than that, I'll just put it in manual and put it on that setting to do that and do it that way. Now for, let's see, the second one, I have it as base level 160, the upper limit at 6400 ISO, which can get fairly grainy, but the grain produced in these cameras, Fuji's cameras, is a really nice grain, and so I don't mind it. And then, a similar thing, I let the shutter speed go down all the way to 1/30th. I know that at 1/30th, if I have it around my neck and my arms are braced and I'm shooting like that, it's going to be pretty crisp. And again, these aren't professional images I'm getting out of here. These are for my own creativity, own stuff I'm going to put on my wall. Maybe if I get an amazing thing, I'm selling it as a fine art thing, but it's much more a creative process than making sure that everything's technically, And then Auto 3 is base level 160 for ISO, and my top end is like 12,800. It would be super grainy. Maybe you turn them black and white if they end up that way. And then again, 1/30th of a second. And if I want to go outside of those settings, I just then go into manual settings and make sure I'm doing it that way. But having this set up, I program this back button here, the AEL, AFL. I program it so I just click that button, and then I'm in a very bright setting. I'll do that, go to Auto 1, and then I just half-click the shutter, and I'm good to go. The other assignable button that's been very valuable to me is this rolling dial on the back. If I press that in, it goes to where I can select anywhere on the screen for focus, but also if I roll this dial forward or backward, it increases the size of the box of where the focus is. And I usually leave it, about, I don't know how to describe that, but I'm leaving it about that size. Figure it out for yourself. But that's nice because if you're wanting to just generally find focus in the middle of the frame, you can make that box a lot bigger and it'll just select what you want to do, or you can make it very tiny and very specifically focus on something. The next thing after that I find that's very valuable is assigning this front button under this toggle switch here. That button, if you press that in, all right, what am I doing wrong here, people? Oh, I'm on manual focus currently, and let's talk about that. This analog switch on the side there will give you can just immediately choose manual focus, constant focus, or single focus. So you find something and just once and hit it. So now if I push the front button, I'll go face detection. So that the autofocus is now looking for faces. So if I flip this out, you'll probably be able to see this, and I focus on the TV screen in front of me there, it's going to go, see, there's a face, and it's probably face detection off, face detection on. It's finding me over there, and it's giving priority to my right eye. That's so creepy. And then face detection off, and it'll focus wherever the box wants. Having that ability is really important when you're shooting in a populated area, and if you want to focus on a building, you want face detection off, or an object. And if you want to focus on people, you might want it on. And you can select left eye, right eye, or computer chooses whatever. Super nice to just have that assignable right there, because if your focus keeps jumping around because it's grabbing faces, you want to be able to turn that off quick, and just with a push of button, you can switch back and forth. Love it. The other thing is this front button here, I really don't assign much to that. Typically it would be my shutter speed on my work camera, but for this I don't really use it unless I'm out of auto setting, and it's just kind of there. The other super important thing is that sometimes you want to be outside in bright sun and you want to be able to shoot it like aperture f2. So everything has really shallow depth of field, and it'll just get tons of likes on Instagram. You can use a neutral density filter. So you can assign this button to just automatically, you can just hit that button and then you get ND filter off or ND filter on. So if you turn it off, it's obviously going to be, everything's going to be brighter and your shutter speed can be quicker and all that. And then if you turn the ND filter on, you're darkening down your whole scene, and you can keep your aperture really wide open and all that. Love that. That is a super nice feature, as well as this button back here, as well as this button back here. And those are all assignable. You can put them as whatever you want. That's how I set mine up. That's how I use it. It's amazing. Now this top button here going back and forth, that is going to switch between electronic view. Yes, you can see that right there. Oh, cool. Look at that. So when I do that, you can see a tiny square and the bigger square go dark. And what that's doing is it's putting a little tiny monitor up in front of that. So when it's set like this, when I look through here, I'm actually just going to be seeing the electronic viewfinder. And when I hit it again, I'll be looking through the actual, like looking through here, the rangefinder, I think they call it. And I've actually found that I like the natural just looking through here better than the electronic viewfinder. So everyone's different, I guess. But then there's also, you push it the other way, and there's this little tiny screen that'll come up in the bottom right of screen that wherever your focus box is, it'll show that enlarged, and you can check your focus and see that, what you're actually focusing on is in focus, which again is super cool. And then the other button here that is I didn't assign but is actually there, you can just very quickly and easily scroll between still image, high shutter count, burst speed, whatever, motor drive kind of thing, and you can do up to 11 frames a second, 8 or 11 there. And then on low, you can do anything from 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then you have all these different bracketing options as far as ISO, white balance, HDR, and then advanced filters. You can actually do a panoramic thing with this where you can just go click, 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 like with your iPhone, and it stitches it together in camera. What an amazing thing. I don't ever really use it that much. And then you have like these advanced filters of like toy camera kind of stuff, and they can be fun, but I don't really use those much. I usually leave it on still image, and it just clicks away really fast. The other things I do is I usually put my shutter speed, or my shutter, it creates a little sound because I believe it's a leaf shutter, and it just doesn't make any sound really in camera. But it'll make a little sound. But I usually leave it off because in using this camera, I usually don't want to disturb either like wildlife, or if I'm shooting around people, I don't want them to know I'm taking pictures generally. So I'll just kind of have it down there, and it's really quiet, and it all works, and it's great. Anything else? The other thing is the exposure compensation here. This is a really nice thing where I have it set up so it's, I have my film effect that I'll put on here. I usually go classic chrome. It has a little bit more blue to it, and the shadows are darker, and I really like how it looks. Sometimes it's a little dark, and I'll want to see into a shaded area a little more, and so you can just go a single stop or 2 stops up, and that brightens the whole thing or darkens it depending on how you want, and that's just a very quick way to also adjust that setting. And I love, we already talked about it, but this focus thing over here, with this being an f2 lens at night with like light bulbs and stuff, if you blur this out, you get this great effect of the bokeh as just these nice little round things, or like a street, and you have these like video footage of it that's just like looks like little light balls moving around, which is super cool. It's just such a great little camera, and it really, really helps you progress creatively. Not even just if you're, just Joe Schmo, whoever, getting into photography, and all of the stuff in photography is really interesting and creative and fun at this point for you. If you've worked as a photographer for a long time, it becomes work to some degree. I've been very, very careful to protect when I work as a creative time so I don't burn out, and I take luxurious amounts of time off at times to keep that creative energy and that passion for what I'm doing. And this thing, I've never been one to just walk around with a camera. And now that I have this, I much more so enjoy just being present in that observation kind of space. I don't know how to better say it, but it's really fun to just take this thing out, walk around and observe things, go with my kids or anyone else and just walk around and shoot stuff. It really is enjoyable. And that's kind of very much changed my approach to what I'm doing. I really like it. It's really worth the money, and it's really worth the time and investment. And if you get one of these and you don't like it, I bet you can sell it for like no loss pretty much, because there are probably a lot of them stuck in a shipping container off of California right now. What else? What else am I missing about this thing? The battery life is really good, and you charge it just by USB-C, which I've actually really kind of like that. I just take it and plug it in off of my thing that I charge everything else off of. Yeah, it all around, really, really fun camera. The whole menu system and everything else is very similar to the GFX 100 we have, so it's a decent learning curve. The Wi-Fi and app is as bad as they come. It has Wi-Fi, it has Bluetooth, and so does the GFX 100, and they're absolutely useless. Fuji, would you please just make an app that works? I just want to open an app and open up the camera and select the images I want, or do that. You should be able to do that, but for some reason you can't. And like every time I have to take the card out, put it into an adapter, and then plug it into the computer. And I know, first world problems, whatever, but it would be a selling point. I won't charge you for it. Go ahead, use that idea. But anyways, this camera, can't recommend it enough because of the creative process that it puts you into. It really, really is beneficial. I had a friend who's a really, really good videographer and photographer who's been into these for a long time, Joe Carter. Look him up on Instagram. He really has some cool work. He goes and walks around kind of coastal carnival type town situations and gets these really cool images of life and everything else. He was into these and I just didn't get it. And it wasn't until Tim, studio manager, retoucher here, got one, and I started looking at it and realizing what the little weird angle of this thing was. And now that I've got it, I'm constantly looking for time when I can actually go out, walk around and take photos and just, I don't know, it's really, really nice. I love it. So, yeah, go get one, and you'll be better off for it. Y'all take care now.